Hey friends, my name is Amy Rebecca. Welcome back to my channel and to a new series I am calling Crazy Tales from Kuwait. Here we go. If you didn't know this fun fact about me, a number of years ago I lived in Kuwait for a little while and I would make vlogs and videos about my expat experience there. But there were a lot of things that I never told you guys. I experienced so many truly bizarre and in some circumstances downright horrifying things while I was living in Kuwait. But I've held off on telling any of those stories because I thought I was, in an active lawsuit with my ex-employers. But now my lawyer is ghosting me and hasn't answered any of my emails in over a year, so I'm guessing that either the case went ahead and we lost and she just never bothered to let me know, or she maybe took my money and ran. I don't know. It's Kuwait, anything can happen. So now I'm just coming out with all of my crazy tales, and this series is not meant to be an informational series. Don't come here if you're looking for advice on like visas and looking for houses and anything practical. This is all just crazy drama that happened in my life. That leads us on to my disclaimer that everybody always ignores anyway, so I don't know why I do it. But anything that I mention in this video or within this series is not a direct reflection on the entire country of Kuwait or all of the people who have or have ever lived there and their experiences. This is just stories from my life. They could have happened anywhere, but they didn't. They happened in Kuwait. So many people, when I make these kinds of videos, listen to my stories about my life and get offended about them, and I don't understand. I mean, it's not about you. It's about me and my crazy life. So with all of that said, if this sounds like a series that you are excited for, go ahead and give it a thumbs up to let me know. Maybe leave me a little comment so I know that, you know, that somebody cares about this kind of content. And subscribe if you haven't already. And let's get into the madness. So the first story I'm going to share with you is, quite frankly, wild. It's one of those that I look back at now that I'm 30 and think, wow, I'm so glad I didn't die that day. So I would like to preface this story by first explaining that alcohol is illegal in Kuwait. It's illegal to buy it, it's illegal to make it, it's illegal to bring it into the country. It's a big no-no. But that doesn't mean that there's no alcohol in Kuwait. I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. There are some restaurants that you can go to that are kind of speakeasy style, that if you know a certain person, or if you, I don't know a secret password, that they will serve you alcohol. I used to go to a restaurant like that with some of my friends, and I never bought any alcohol there because, number one, I was terrified. Like, can you imagine being arrested and going to jail in a foreign country with a culture so vastly different from the one that you've always known? That sounds like the stuff that nightmares are made of. It's not worth it to me to have like a vodka shot. No. Secondly, this stuff was like brewed in the basement. It's not like you could order like a pina colada. It was just straight up alcohol that someone had made in a bucket somewhere. So what, it's not worth the money, it's not worth the risk to me to drink that. Ugh, stunk. Anyway, that was the alcohol situation. So as you can imagine, people would get together and have like, can you call it a party? Because there was never any music, there was never any dancing, there was never any alcohol. So these parties we would go to would have more like PTA meetings vibes. But one evening, really soon after I moved to Kuwait, a girl that I worked with invited us to a party that she said a friend of hers was having. And I was like, sounds like a good opportunity to meet some new people and leave my cockroach-infested apartment that's full of sand. The whole thing from beginning to end was very sketchy. We turned up at this guy's apartment and I was expecting other people to be there because it was supposed to be a party, but it was just him and his friend. And I was like, I don't know about this situation, guys. But he said, oh, the party has been moved to my friend's house. I can drive you all there if you want. Younger Amy made some not even questionable, terrible choices this was one of them. I'm older and wiser now. If a stranger is like, hey, you're in a foreign country, hop in the back of my car and I'll take you to an undisclosed location, I would politely decline. But in this instance, I was like, sure thing, everyone else is going. Let me just buckle up in the back of this man's SUV. I hope my mother never watches this because she'll never let me leave the house again. Honestly, I don't remember what part of Kuwait this party ended up being in, but it was really far from where we lived. We lived in Khaitan, and which is like, look, if you live in Kuwait, I'm sure you'll judge that. I didn't get to choose where I lived. I can't even talk about that right now. If you know, you know. But we were driving for a hot minute, and it wasn't until we were maybe 20 minutes into this drive that it came about, or came up in conversation, that this guy wasn't this girl's friend. He was her, I don't know if I can say this word on YouTube, I don't know if that's allowed. He was the guy who would provide her with illicit substances. I'm in the back of this man's car late at night driving to God knows where, and I find out this information and I almost peed my pants, but there's not a lot I can do about it at this point. And eventually we turn up to this big residential area, and if you've been to Kuwait, if you've seen the residential areas there where like the Kuwaitis live, those houses are like mansions. They're huge. These people are rich, like Real Housewives of Beverly Hills rich. This is what we're talking about. So we turn up to this house and it's dark, and I'm like, this is probably where I'm going to die then. And then this guy opens a door at the side of the house, and we start walking down these stairs into the basement. And I know what you're thinking, Amy, not one of these decisions that you've made in this night has been good. I know. So we go down into the basement, they open another door that was locked, and it opens into a nightclub. This room was enormous. It had a full bar stocked with everything. Whiskey, vodka, rum. They were doing shots of like real alcohol, not like the bathtub stuff that they were making at the restaurant, like Smirnoff and Absolute. They had shelves of alcohol. There was a dance floor. There was a whole seating area on one side with sofas and cushions and everything. I think there was a pool, but I don't know if I'm just misremembering that, but I think there was. There was a DJ. There was like a games area. This was not like anything I'd ever seen before in my life. It was an underground club. This man, he had an underground club in his basement. It was wild. And I will tell you, I actually had such a good time that night because firstly, it was nice to just be able to dance, because there's no way you can go out and dance in Kuwait because there are no clubs. And also I feel like dancing, like the kind of club dancing that we're used to over here, is probably haram. So, you know, there is no dancing. So to be able to go out and dance and like meet all these new people who, by the way, were really truly lovely. I had the best conversations. It was such a nice time. I was making friends with everybody. Like, it was probably one of the best nights I had the whole time I lived in Kuwait. But at some point throughout this evening, my colleague's friend had left without us. Fast forward to the end of this party when everybody's dispersing from this basement and we realize that we have absolutely no idea where we are and no means of getting home. Because at this point it was quite late. It was maybe like 2 o'clock in the morning, which, well, I don't know, to young people that might not seem late. To me now, crazy late. And none of our phones had calls, or I don't remember. There was a weird issue with our phones which I never solved the whole time that I lived there. Like, I could not call people from my phone. My Kuwait number just didn't allow me to make calls. I don't know what that was about. But we were talking to these guys that we'd met in the basement, which weirdest sentence I've ever said maybe. But they were trying to explain to us like, well, there are no taxis here anyway, because we were out in the middle of like this big residential area where everybody had their own cars. Everybody was very wealthy. People don't drink, so there's no need for taxi services. Oh, the memory of me begging this random man at the side of the road, like, please find us a taxi to take us home. Nobody wants to be stranded in a unknown location in the middle of the night, but especially because it looked suspicious, right? Like, if the police drove past and were just standing out in the street at 3 o'clock in the morning, I don't know if that's an arrestable offense, but it certainly looks suspicious. And even though I hadn't drunk anything, I think maybe my friends had had a little bit to drink, so I don't know if they breathalyzed people there, but I was just, all of this was going through my mind. All of this. I was panicked. And eventually this really lovely man from Saudi managed to get us a taxi, I think. Or did he call a friend to take us home? I don't remember, it was so long ago, like the details of it are kind of hazy now, but we did manage to get home. We were safe. The security guards in our apartment building noted down that we had got home really late at night and passed that information on to our employer, but that's a story for a different day. That was the first and only party I attended the whole time I lived in Kuwait. I'm sure in bigger expat areas that those kinds of parties go on. Definitely not as bougie as that one, because no one's living in a multi-million-dollar mansion who's teaching at an international school. It's just not happening. But, like, you know what I mean. I'm sure there are plenty of, like, you know, illegal parties that happen in those kinds of places. But not in Khaitan, not where I lived. Nothing happened where I lived, except crime. So yeah, I mean, that just gives you a different perspective of some of the things that you might not expect that happen in Kuwait that definitely do. You guys, I have so many crazy stories from my time living in Kuwait, and I'm excited to share them with you if you want to keep hearing more of them. So just let me know. I'm really impressed that my voice held out throughout this because I've been really sick this week, but I managed it. Hooray. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember that I love you all so much. You are enough just as you are, and I will see you all next time. Bye guys.